Hey everyone, how's it going? Hey, I've been real busy this week and I've got company in from out of town this weekend, but I snuck out here and I wanted to try to sneak in one story video for the weekend. It's really a good one. It spooked me when I read it and I think you're gonna love it. One other thing, at the end of this video, I'm gonna show y'all some stickers that we bought and we're selling. If you want to help support the channel, stick around, look at these stickers. They're pretty cool. But we ain't gonna talk about that right now. We're gonna get into a story. So, all right, here we go. Here we go. This story kind of spooked me. I've never read anything quite like this, and I think you're going to find it very interesting, especially how this guy kept his cool during the event. But let's get into the story. He writes, "Hey Cam, my name is Joe, and I live in East Texas. We have a small farm where we keep cattle, goats, and a few horses and other small animals. And we grow vegetables for our family and ourselves and a couple of big fields of millet or corn to help feed our stock. I'm not a big farmer or rancher. I just love this life. I grew up this way on a larger farm my grandfather runs to this day. I bought a few acres from him when I was in my 20s and just carried on with what I grew up doing. All that said, I don't make a living off this like my family does. I travel and I work pipelines. I'm a welder. Sometimes I'm gone for a month or more, traveling to wherever the money is at the time. My wife is able to take care of things at home with my 2 sons and my father's help. I have one neighbor about a mile down the road. I tried to get to know the guy, but he is one of these homesteader types. You know, the people who never work the land or animals in their life. They buy 10 acres in the country, set up a house, and they try to go back to the early 1900s or 1800s by working the land with a hoe." Yes, I know the type. "They buy a few chickens and goats and then they tell you how hard they work and how much they know about everything agricultural. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for folks going back to the land and living that way, but a lot of these homesteaders are real goofball know-it-alls and they annoy me. There are probably a few good ones. I have asked him to be available to help my wife with things she might need if she gets in a bind. I mean, we are neighbors. He says he will, but when she called him once to help her catch one of our horses that had gotten out, he refused because he said he was down in his back. That is all it took for my wife to nix that idea. But he sure has no problems asking me to use one of my tractors to do a job the very next weekend. Then he does a YouTube video showing everyone how hard his life was getting that 100 by 100 foot field ready to plant. I watched the video and his back seemed fine to me. It may sound like I'm going off on a tangent here with these homesteaders, but I'll get back to him in a minute. Here's the thing. We have wild pigs in our county. We have a lot of them. On winter nights, my sons and I like to scope out a field with our night vision scopes and shoot them. We try to kill as many as we can. First, it's a lot of fun. Second, they are a very destructive animal around here and all over Texas, really. Last, who wouldn't like shooting feral pigs at night with an effing night vision scope? Last January, around New Year's, I had taken off a few weeks to spend with my family over the holidays. My 2 teenage boys were getting rowdy and wanting to go to some party one of their buddies was throwing a few miles away. I didn't like the idea. They had gone to several parties in the past, but for some reason my wife and I both didn't feel good about this one and told them I was going to shoot up a field that night and they were welcome to come along. Look, these boys are 17-year-old twins, by the way, and they live to hunt and they cancel their party plans right there. I knew they would, and my wife smiled at me when she saw their response. Boy, do I know how to work those teenagers. We got to one of my grandfather's fields around 10 p.m. and set up under an irrigation system. The field has a slightly downhill slope with a line of sight all the way to the woods that line the bottom land about 300 yards away. Oh, and we had piled up corn in that field for bait. That always guarantees a good shoot. We threw out some square hay bales for rifle rest and we set up. There had been pigs there when we drove in, and it took an hour or so for them to all come back after the distraction we caused driving in and setting up. The first half dozen trotted back to the corn pile. It was not long before there were 30 or 40 pigs chowing down on the bait. I let my boys start shooting, and they knocked down 4, maybe 6 pigs. We could clearly see our targets with these scopes. Most of the pigs left, and we waited. We knew they would be back soon, and we would start the process all over again. The boys were drinking Cokes in the interim, and I was sipping on coffee from a thermos, and we were all eating some of my wife's world-famous pecan pie. It was a good night. I love doing these things with my boys, and life was really good that night. One of the boys leaned back over the bale and scoped the field. I just happened to look over at him, and he lowered his rifle to the bale and looked into the field intently. "Are they back for more?" I asked him. He didn't answer. I just watched him move his head back into position to look through his scope. Everything got really quiet. We figured it was shooting time again, and we headed back to the bales. And then my son raised his head again in the darkness, and he said, "Dad, there's something in that field, but it's not a pig." I looked through my scope, and illuminated in white was a large figure close to the ground. These scopes do not show images that are not there. There was something crawling on the ground, in the mud, towards the pigs we had killed 30 minutes before. Everything about it was strange, but mostly the way it moved. It acted like it was sneaking up on the dead pigs. It was hard to make out exactly what this thing was, and none of us even thought about taking a shot at it. Just our luck, it would be some sort of endangered predator, and we would go to jail for killing it. But it was the way it moved. It was hard to explain. The only way I can convey it to you is to refer back to some horror movies I've seen, where these ghosts and people move in a real jerky type stop motion. It would creep slowly on all fours and then speed up, then slow down, and it looked like it would turn its head and body back towards the tree line as if it was looking at something behind it. Well, needless to say, the pigs that were there all scattered. It soon made it to the dead pigs, which were also illuminated in our scopes. They were still warm on this cold night. It reached out and grabbed a pig and started back to the woods. We just watched it. And then it stopped 50 or 60 yards from the tree line. It stood straight up and threw the pig by the leg the whole distance back to the trees. We could see the pig lofted in the air, flipping end over end, and I could actually hear it break through the limbs and hit the ground. Then this thing stood up and was standing on 2 legs like a man. It stood fully erect and threw the pig like it was a softball with a long arcing sidearm motion. I don't know how tall it was, but it was big. I moved my rifle a few inches to the right, and I could see several more of these things inside the thick woods, rushing towards the pig that had just landed in the mud. They were all standing straight up. They weren't crawling like this one. There were maybe 4 or 5 of them, and the boys saw all of this too and never said a word. This thing then turned back on all fours. It began making its way back to the dead pig still laying in the field, moving at a greater rate of speed than before in that freaky, jerking sort of way. It looked like it was a crab, actually. "What the hell is that thing, Dad?" one of the boys asked. "I don't know. Just be quiet and let's see what this thing does." We watched as the thing went through the whole process of retrieving pigs, one at a time, and returning to throw it into the woods for its buddies. I could see one last pig in the field, and the creature was moving towards it. One of the boys must have moved because a Coke can fell off the bale and landed on an ammo box laying on the ground, making a clanking sound. I looked over at my son, and he was looking down at the ground. No big deal, I thought. No way this thing heard that as far away as we were. When I leaned over to get my eye back in the scope, I saw the creature standing beside the last pig, but he was standing upright, and he was looking straight at us. None of us said a word, but we all knew we had been made. Suddenly, it dropped to all fours and started moving at a very fast rate of speed right at us. It was running on 4 limbs like a gorilla does, sometimes skipping one arm or the other, like it was running on 3 legs instead of 4. "Boys, get in the truck and get it started," I said in a matter-of-fact tone. I never took my eye out of that scope. The boys didn't need encouragement. I could hear them moving quickly to the truck a few yards behind us. Then I heard the truck start, and I began a backwards creep while keeping my eye in the scope. I didn't want to lose sight of this thing. I was going to have to take a shot to stop it. It was moving too fast for me to make it to the truck in time. I lowered the mill dot to a few feet in front of the charging animal and squeezed off 3 rounds, kicking up mud into the oncoming beast. It stopped its charge about 30 yards in front of the bales. By this time, I was even with the lowered tailgate, and I rolled over into the bed of the truck and slammed my hand on the sidewalls. My son punched the gas pedal, and off we shot down the gravel road. I finally got myself upright in the bed of the moving truck and tried to look through the darkness in my scope, but there was no way to get a good field of view as my son tore down the gravel road. The back window opened and one of the boys asked if I was okay. I yelled for them to stop the truck, and we came to a slow stop. I looked back into the field at what I thought was a safe distance and acquired the beast again as it walked slowly back to the woods. It picked up the last dead pig by its rear leg and continued to walk in a confident manner all the way back to the woods, where illuminated in white again were 4 more of the same shapes, now standing in the open field. They all had a pig in their grip. I heard a loud moan over the sound of the truck engine rumbling in that cold air. I saw the one who did it. He tilted his head back and he stuck his chest out and then howled like a wolf would howl, but with a much deeper tone, and they all walked back into the woods and disappeared. We got the heck out of there and went home to a warm and safe house. 2 weeks later, I was driving past my homesteader neighbor's house. He and his wife, who by the way never spoke to my wife or I, she was religious or something and thought it was sinful to talk to people not in her religion, were loading their truck with furniture. I stopped and asked what was going on. With a weird ghostly look on his face, the man told me that they were going back to their other house in Dallas. Something about a family member needed care and they probably wouldn't be back. He offered to sell his place to me right there on the spot, which surprised me. Of course, I declined. I didn't need that old swampy land they had bought. Not too long after that, I ran into the sheriff, and he asked me about those people, where the heck they were, etc. I told him that they had moved. He laughed and told me about a call his office had gotten from them the night that we saw the creatures in the field. Apparently, they had been terrorized that night by a pack of monsters. He made a big joke out of the thing, and I laughed with him, all the while knowing that the story was true. I went on my way and felt a little bad about my homesteader friend, who were run off their land by a pack of Bigfoots. But honestly, I don't think I'm going to miss them too much. So yes, we have Bigfoot in our area. I had heard about them a few times, but had never run into them until that night. We just don't talk about it in general conversation with anyone. I mean, really, who would believe us? Joe, I don't think I need to say anything after that story. It pretty much speaks for itself. That event would scare the crap out of me, looking through a night vision scope and seeing these things move around out in the field. Had great restraint not shooting these things. I have a feeling if you'd have hit one of them, you may have really hacked them off. So anyway, that was a great story, really well written, and I appreciate you sending it in. All right, I want to show you guys these stickers, so hang on for just a second. Hey everybody, I just wanted to show you some stickers that we ordered. Several people expressed an interest in this. I didn't even know what stickers were, but checked into it, and people like to put them on their coolers and guitar cases and stuff like that, so we ordered a few. We've got them in there for sale. We're selling a set of the 5x3 ovals and the 3x2 squares with rounded edges for $5. Now look, they're not worth $5. I don't mind telling you that, but a lot of people have expressed interest in helping support the channel. I don't take donations, but if you want to contribute for whatever reason, that's fine. I'll send you these stickers, and I think they're pretty cool. I like them. They're real quality made. I don't know if this will focus or not, but isn't that cool? And we'll send them to you. You can send a PayPal payment of $5 to dixiecryptid@gmail.com, and we'll get these right out to you. We've sold about 20 or 30 sets so far, and I'd love to sell you one. So if you're interested, look down in the description. My email address is down there, dixiecryptid@gmail.com. Copy that, paste it in your PayPal thing, and send me $5 and you'll get the stickers. All right, I sure appreciate it. Thanks.